What's up, everyone? Shoot over the invite. Packs. What's up, Mike? Hog Tech just joined. Reece, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how are you?
What's going on?
Nothing much. Just this is my first day of classes here at Auburn, so it's new.
It's
Everything's new.
brand new. I just gotta
Yeah.
pay some bills real quick, and we'll get into it. It's episode 8 of Rock. It's live, unedited. It's episode 8 of Road All American, brought to you by ROKFORM. Make sure you guys check them out. ROKFORM.com. Use code DMiller25. Get 25% off your order. Check out that twist lock mount. It's the best mount going for bass boats, fishermen, to mount your phone to your boat, to your console. So yeah, let's get into it. So we missed you this year on the BFLs and the Toyotas. You're grinding out on the EQs.
Yes, yeah. I really wanted to get to one of the Toyotas. I was actually trying to get to the one on the same river because that's my favorite fishery. But I had to move in here at Auburn, so it stung because I was like, man, I really wanted to go. I really did because something about smallmouth up north is just
Yeah, man.
you can't do anything else. So.
Yeah, you can't beat it. Yeah, no. How do you like doing the opens?
It's great. It's definitely a different format than the Toyotas and the BFLs and where I came from. Bassmaster, they do an amazing job with like the structure, if that makes sense. Like they really prioritize like the EQ anglers, and the bodies of water that we've been fishing have been really putting me and a lot of other anglers can vouch to the test for sure. It hasn't been easy, especially like with the new off limits. Like we have to be off limits for a month in advance.
Yeah,
So we have 5 bodies of water, not 5 bodies of water, 5 days of practice and 250 boats. By the time the tournament comes, it's like so much pressure compared to like uh Toyotas are pressured too, but it's like you can't compare it to anything else because it's like everybody's hitting everything and within those 5 days, which pretty much makes the fishing like brutally tough, regardless
yeah,
of the like even I didn't think at all like before the tournament started like how tough it was gonna be until I went to like the St. Lawrence River, and that's like the body of water I've been on I've fished tournaments out of before. This is the only one this year that I've fished a tournament before. So like all the bodies of water I've fished this year have been new. So I even the St. Lawrence wasn't easy. So I kind of like took that into account when I fished those tournaments because I was like, the pressure definitely goes a long way in the
yeah,
opens for sure. So it's like whoever makes the elites, the top 9 guys, wholeheartedly deserve it because
yeah,
the fishing like at the day of the tournaments is like the toughest it can honestly be, and to catch fish consistently at all 9 events is like really
yeah.
difficult for sure.
It's tough.
Yeah, like from Lake Eufaula in June to uh, Bugs Island. I didn't get to make that one because of school, but
Yeah,
Bugs Island,
I saw that.
it's all different. It's all around the country, and they fish entirely different. Like it's not one of those things where it's like you can take uh, what you learned in Lake Eufaula, Alabama, and apply it to, for instance, Wheeler Lake. It's like they're entirely different setups. So it's like whoever makes it, like they're good at pretty much anything like bass fishing. Like
Yeah,
they know how to adjust. They know how to do pretty much everything. So
yeah. No offense to anybody that's competing in the EQs, but a lot of guys have been rooting for Milliken, and it was like after he did good in a couple of them, and it's like, oh boy, he's got this. Like he's a hammer.
yeah, Milliken, he's really good.
Yeah,
Like no doubt about it. I just it the thing is like you have to be like up north. I know he doesn't have a ton of experience. Because he's from Texas, of course. So like it's difficult. Like just because like he didn't do good one tournament, it's like it almost puts you out of it mentally because there's just so many other tournaments. It feels like the season never ends
Yeah.
almost. So definitely big props to him because he's really been doing really well, and it's difficult because like the Toledo Bend, and like Lake Eufaula, like those southern lakes, it sets up really well for him before, but now it's like it's different. It's different for sure. So
Yeah. What I'm trying to do this like an interview type of thing, but also like just for us to, you know, talk and whatnot. But what difference do you see doing the EQs? Because I never ended up doing the opens. I was waitlisted a couple years in a row, and I was gonna do it this year again, but then with everything else I'm doing, I can't do the 9 events. That kind of like was the nail in the coffin for me. But the what do you see as being a huge difference going from the Toyotas to the BFLs going to the Opens? What do you see as the biggest challenge outside of obviously you just said like it's a much bigger geographic area because all these different lakes and fisheries you never did, but overall like with the competition wise and the way it's laid out, what do you feel any difference?
um that's a great question. Honestly, I think the opens right now, the way it's set up, the whole field between like veteran anglers like Ish Monroe, Bobby Lane, and like elites guys that are like always jump into every tournament, and like tackle warehouse invitational guys that came over like to the opens trying to make the elites also. Like the whole field has been like almost like the best of the best, like kind of together. So in terms of competition, I mean, it's like you can't really compare it to the Toyota and BFLs, just because I haven't really fished it this year, but I just know the guys are really, really, really good. And for me, like it was a big learning experience because I had never fished. I've only fished the St. Lawrence River out of like the tournaments of this year, all 9. Like that's the only body of water I've been to beforehand. So like you follow Oklahoma, Toledo Bend, you follow Alabama and Wheeler. Those 4 were all super super new to me. Like it was definitely one of those like things where it's like you had to persevere through it because I was like battling exams while I was trying to get like practice for tournaments. So I couldn't get like I probably got one tournament where I could practice all 5 days, and that was Eufaula, Oklahoma, and that was like summer, so I was already out of school at the time, and it's really difficult keeping up for sure because these guys like they fish these bodies of water so much,
Yeah.
like they like oh yeah, uh, Lake Eufaula, Alabama. I've been fishing that for 20 plus years, and I got into bass fishing tournaments about 2-3 years ago. So it's definitely difficult to keep up. But I'm like always love the challenge because like a lot of people at my age almost I wouldn't necessarily say get intimidated by the opens, but it's like they're like I wouldn't do it this early in fishing and uh at like their age, but I just think it's like if you want to be the best, you gotta surround yourself around the best anglers.
Yeah.
Like they're like you
You want
compare to anybody else.
you
So
want the competition. You want to fish against the best guys. It's only gonna make you better. I mean, at the end of the day, too, I look at it as like we're competing against the fish, not necessarily competing against the competitors, but it's who can figure the place out the best and who could trick the fish the best. And that's
exactly.
always been my philosophy, anyways. But I think you guys definitely have like a good but tough schedule. Looking at some of the fisheries and the times of year for them, even with like the St. Lawrence, it's like more summer, and then like I know a lot of the drifting and stuff doesn't really kick off until later in August. Um,
I did pretty honestly. I did good drifting. That was like my top. like pattern. Like that was the only thing I could really catch them on was drifting, just because, like I said, the fish were just so pressured. They seen the drop shot
A million times.
yeah,
Each fish a million times.
with the flatworm on it, and they're like the smallmouth are looking at it, and you can even see them on live scope. They'll turn away from it. So I had to show them something different. I mixed in Carolina rig is always a staple. I mixed in a free rig, and like baits that like give a little bit different presentation than what everybody else is throwing. Because in the opens, everything's getting hit. Like every bank is getting hit 5-6 times before the tournament even starts. So like you got to show them something different. Like during practice, like I like every tournament this year, I've caught fish in practice on different baits and I was catching them on in the tournament, just because everybody will use a drop shot, everybody will use a wacky worm on docks, and like everybody's hitting everything. So it's like you almost have to switch it up come tournament day on the fly, and that's what makes these guys so good, is they're able to adjust on the fly and be like, I'm not throwing a crankbait anymore on this flat. I'm going to switch over to a swim jig, and they just catch them. I mean, it's like they just do that off of like personal experience, and I'm like, I hope to learn all that in the long run. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I know with like some places, the Weatherall talked about this last year with the Open on Oneida, and my buddy Ed fished that tournament as well, and they were like 250 boats plus, let's say, 200 co-anglers practice, and Oneida fish is small, in my opinion, anyways. For a big
Yeah.
lake, it fishes small. That's a lot of pressure. And then it was like tournament after tournament after tournament, and then the opens, and then it was like a lot of people. There was a lot of zeros in that tournament. A lot of the small weights. I'm like, that's a lot of pressure. And then the opens guys, like you're saying, you got the best anglers, from all the different tours competing in it.
Yeah.
That's makes out a tough
Oh,
tournament
for
to
sure.
do.
For sure. Yeah, because it, like, they run so much stuff that they like had in the past. So like they've been there like 5 years ago, like, and they win a tournament there, like on Eufaula. If they go back to like a past place, everybody seems to know about it. So it's like you pretty much have to like reset like everything once you get there, because it's like what was working a year ago or like what was working even weeks might not be working then. So it's definitely difficult. And again, it's like what you're talking about with pressure. Great anglers in the opens EQ right now aren't doing that great just because of pressure. And one thing that I tell a lot of guys now is like the opens kind of not necessarily took out the shallow water fishing, but it made it significantly tougher because everybody's hitting everything for 5 days straight. So, like, for example, Lake Eufaula in March, when I fished that, I was on a really, really good, like, flipping bite. And it was like everybody else was flipping. Everybody was pretty much doing the same thing. And the guys that really stood out were the guys that were offshore that had, like, little spots that nobody else knew about. You know what I mean? So it's like offshore seems like it's something you have to do in the opens, because like if you're like fun fishing, for example, you go hit a laydown or a row of laydowns and you catch 5, that's really good. But all 5 laydowns on that bank have been hit 5 times in the opens. And imagine if one guy catches one fish off that bank, then 5 other guys probably hit it. That's 5 fish caught off that bank in that week. That they could all be done by that. So it's like you really gotta like focus on offshore, because I mean, if you see in the opens, majority of the guys aren't doing that great shallow. Like Ish Monroe and Bobby Lane are like the best shallow water fishermen out there, in my opinion. So they're doing really well with it. But even then, it's like the offshore is like, it seems like that's where it's won majority of the time, just because it's just pressure. I mean, I I'm from the Potomac River, so shallow water fishing is pretty much all you do year round. I mean, there's a few little offshore grass flats, but that's pretty much it. So this is all new to me, and for it to be like not the flipping bite not being really good is difficult, especially when it's like even riprap and some of these lakes are getting hit 20 something times still. So it's definitely something I had to get used to. It's different than the BFLs for sure, but the Toyotas even now the fields are really full, so
Yeah.
it's around the same. I just know, for example, the Opens, it's a lot of pressure because it's like 9 tournaments, and like a lot of these guys are really, really, really stressed when
Yeah.
it comes to points, and that a lot more than the Toyotas, in my opinion, because like I see some of these guys' faces coming back from the weigh-in, and like if they, a lot of these guys in the top 10, if they don't do good in like one tournament, they're not necessarily out of it, but they're like almost like you're done. Like you can't bomb at all,
Yeah.
and like if you
You have to
bomb,
be very
yeah,
consistent.
yeah, you got to be
Yeah.
very, very consistent. Like you got to stay in like the top 20s, like pretty much every other turn. Like you got to average like a 20th place to do really, really good,
Yeah.
because it's it's crazy. I mean, like JT Tompkins, I think he's first in points. He's really, really good angler, and he's really consistent. So it's definitely like prop him, because it's difficult to stay consistent in all these bodies of water. Because
Yeah. Havoc Fishing asks, are you doing the Lake Martin tournament the college and high school kids tournament?
oh yeah, so that's hosted by Logan Parks. He's on the Opens too. He actually was the one that convinced me to come here to Auburn. Yes, I'm doing that. I know a lot of guys on the Auburn team are doing that as well, so I'm really looking forward to that. I actually got out on Martin this weekend. It was fun. It's not easy at all for sure, because like the water temp is like 93 degrees, but it's always good to be out on the lake, and yeah, I should be able to go over there and do that, because I would love to. Especially like what Logan Park did is like, I don't know if you heard of it. It's by Fishing Chaos, and like they
Yeah.
made it so high school anglers are partnered with college
That's
on like
awesome.
the boat, like partnered. So it's cool because like the high schoolers can see how college anglers are, and it also helps like figure out what's the right school for them too, because at least now like there's a lot of club teams and there's a lot of coach teams, so like the coach teams really reach out to a lot of a lot of the high school anglers, but there's great schools like Auburn and stuff that are student ran, that are also really good, that they wouldn't get the opportunity to know about it until like a tournament like that was set up. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's different, so I'm excited to see how it kind of pans out.
Are you so you're gonna do the Auburn fishing team as well?
Yeah, so I'm gonna do the Auburn Bass team, and then I will do some of the opens as well. I don't know which ones I'm gonna be able to hit by the end of this year, just because in terms of points, there's not really a point to it. So I know I want to do the Harris Chain in October, and Ozark.
Well, you still got the win and you're in for the classic, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
still got that carrot.
Exactly, exactly. So, like, I'm gonna try to get as many as possible. Is how classes are set up here. In general, it's really hard to get the practice that you want to get, because it's off limits the whole month before. So I can't be like, I'm gonna go hit it this weekend and then the next weekend, and that's 4 days of practice, because it will like open up like the week before. So I don't think I'll be able to go to Watts Bar for sure, because that's like in the height of like season, like school starting and stuff like that. And there's a ton of Auburn tournaments around here that I have to do as well. So I don't think I'll be able to go to that, but like I'm kind of on standby for Ozarks and Harris Chain. But I know for a fact next year I will be doing the Toyotas. I will be.
All
I
right.
hope. I'll do
Then we'll see you back here on the Potomac.
yeah. I'll do probably the Toyota. Like there's always like an early Florida one in January usually, like Harris Chain or something.
Yeah.
Hopefully like something. I'll do that, and then I'll probably do the Northerns for the Toyotas and probably the Northern Opens too, if those schedules don't interfere. But I won't be doing all 9 like I did this year, just because it's like school schedules not really predictable. So I'll just hit one here, hit one there, and kind of just bounce around between the Toyotas and Opens, because I did all 9 this year, which was really good. But I also want to do the Toyotas too, because MLF it's good too. So I want to do both. If I get the chance to, I'm doing both Toyotas, because I like the Toyota format too, and I kind of started fishing in the BFLs, and I know a lot of guys that do the Toyotas like you and Damien. There's a lot of guys there that do it that I want to fish with again, that I just haven't been able to do at the Open. So I'm looking forward to that also.
We just had my buddy Buck on. Gray Buck was
Yeah.
on the last episode. He just qualified for the Bass Pro Tour. I'm real happy for him. That was great. But there's a lot of guys you could definitely, there's a lot of moving around you can do on the MLF side, whereas like, because I've been doing Bass Nation, locally for like a decade or more. The kind of gave up on trying to do the Opens now, but my goal is I want to fish the All-American. So like before I focus on anything else, I just want to try to get to the All-American and get it done, and hence this podcast. So
yeah.
But yeah, no. What I got a question for you, because it's kind of like a thing we play with. There's 2 questions I ask everybody. Is there any lake that you haven't fished yet that you want to fish, like a bucket list lake? And then what's been your best or your go-to technique this year?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So in terms of lakes that I haven't fished, I'd have to say OH Ivy. Just because it's in Texas, and Bassmaster ranked it I think it was the #1 best lake in the country, above the St. Lawrence. And I've heard like big fish there. And my personal best is only like 8 pounds, 8.3 or something like that. So it's like I kind of want to break it. And I feel like going there would be my best chance to do that.
Yeah.
So either, I would have to say that. And favorite technique would have to be.
Well, what's your go-to this year? Like,
this year, I'd have to say is definitely a Carolina rig.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah,
I throw the rig a lot.
Yeah, just because it's a slower presentation that I feel like a lot of people used in the past, that kind of like dimmered down when live scope became a thing, because it was like drop shots and stuff. With all the technology, you can see it better. But like a Carolina rig is like one of those subtle presentations that I've caught fish on every body of water this year using it, because it's so versatile. Like if you see fish hugging the bottom, you can catch them on a Carolina rig, like regardless of pressure. Yeah, because they're just not going to pass it up. If you fish it slow enough, they won't pass it up because it just looks so natural.
Facts.
Yeah, for sure. So if you got to check it out. You got to use it for sure.
I use it all the time. I've been using it for 25, 30 years now, but that's usually my go-to. And then I've been doing like the finesse one over the years, the Mojo rig, for like the finicky fish in the shallower water. That's been a good deal. But this year my go-to has basically been a jig, unexpectedly, because that just seems to be working the best. Like it's not necessarily what I'd rather be. I'd rather be frogging or something, or whatever. But it just seems like each event that we fished so far that's been the deal. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, I haven't really gotten much fish on a jig this year, believe it or not. Like I've tried like a football jig. I've caught fish on a finesse jig on the St. Lawrence, but on like the like Eufaula and Wheeler and all that, I wasn't catching them like that at all. I was just because I felt like every time I would throw a jig on the bottom, I would just always like resort to I'm like, oh, that Carolina rig would work really good right now. So it's like for me, it's like if I see fish hugging the bottom, it's like jig or Carolina rig, and it's like this year the Carolina rig it's been so good. I mean, even if you look at like the top baits, like a Carolina rig is like a really popular bait that a lot of guys have been using that, like, for example, like it's a great alternative to like offshore anything because I see guys like if you look at Milliken's YouTube or some one of these open anglers YouTubes, they're fishing deep cranks or power fishing, but then the Carolina rig is like one of those alternatives when they like stop eating, and it seems like it always works really well. So I mean, I'd have to say a jig is definitely a good choice too because I want to use a football jig so much, but it's like in my head I'm just like the Carolina rig it's so good.
You know what else is good too? That not this year. I haven't used it. It hasn't. I haven't run into a situation where it called for it. And I thought to use it, but over the past couple years, is a wobble head, like with like a do nothing crawl, like no action, just dead action, and just slow dragging a wobble head, like right across the bottom, like and I instead of a jig and instead of the Carolina rig, and that has produced some good bites for me.
Wobble heads are like that was like
Underrated.
yeah, that bait is what I cut my first check in a BFL on. Is a on the
There you have it.
on the Potomac River. Like there's like rock piles and like anything. If you're flipping anything, like wobbleheads have always seemed to catch fish when like the traditional Texas rig just isn't because it's just so subtle and it stands still. With like a Texas rig, sometimes you don't get much bites dead sticking it, but like a wobblehead, you do.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what it is with that. If it allows it to stand up or just have with, especially, it's funny you said that because the Potomac, because you got the current because it's tidal.
exactly.
So it's probably just like a subtle like movement that it does or something with the current, and the fish see it and like that's alive, boom, and nail it. But
Exactly. I think it has to have something to do with the current. Same with like, have the free rig?
yeah,
Like that something to do with the current too, because it's something like with like the weight being separated from the bait, and it kind of gives it like a free action because like the wobblehead moves, and the free rig pretty much is like the weight's down here and the bait's like given free action. So I think if you put that in current, I think it just makes like the claws just like subtly like
yeah,
whatever your favorite bait is, like subtly just like moving to a point where it's like so like realistic that the fish like can't resist. So
I had done good on the Potomac one tournament. I forgot what it came in like 13th or 15th. I was flipping the like straight up flipping 1 ounce weight Tokyo rig, and, like right like there's a grass. It's on the main river. Well, I wasn't in one of the creeks, but it was like a grass. But then there was like a gap, and there was like an inside weed line where the docks were. And these docks weren't like the long ones. They were like shorter, 30, 40 feet long.
yeah,
Not like the 150-foot docks that you see in some of the creeks. But flipping around those pilings and that outside edge, like within 20 feet of the dock, it did good. I got a check out of it, but you wouldn't think to throw something heavy like flip something 1 ounce in 2 feet of water or 3 feet of water, but it's like it hits bottom. They don't know what the hell's going on. They look up. There's a bait sitting right in their face. They hit it.
yeah. I mean, props to you on that because I have not seemed to catch anything on the Tokyo rig. I have the stuff to, and like you've seen the Seth Fighter video on Wired to Fish and all that, and you're like, it's gotta work, but it's just I haven't been able to get it to work. But I can see what you mean because like, especially on the Potomac, how they like you catch fish on chatterbaits and a lot of reaction baits. When you throw that 1 ounce, it probably like hits so hard that it just creates a reaction. They just have to eat it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
what I think it is.
yeah. Because I mean, sometimes like especially with the finesse baits and stuff, like they almost are getting used to seeing the subtle stuff. So that's why like the Nico rig, the free rig, like all these new rigs are coming out because it's like they want like a different presentation of even like your favorite soft plastic will go a long way in anything. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, before you mentioned flipping, my mouth is watering. I'm on my way to Cayuga for Saturday's BFL, and hopefully the grass isn't nuked. It's still there. I could get on a flipping deal. I'm not chasing smallmouth. Every time I try to chase smallmouth at Cayuga, I end up doing terrible because
I can't
this
do
time of year you can't.
I can't like
Just if it was bed fishing is one thing, but
yeah.
not chasing them around in open water. I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna go straight to the grass. If there isn't any grass, I'm going to the docks, and that's what I'm doing. I'm live or die by that. I got two flipping sticks, two frog rods, and two rods to skip stuff under like little finesse things under docks, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. I fished a BFL on Cayuga. It was either last year or 2 years ago, and they just sprayed the grass. The fishing was so bad, but like flipping milfoil was like the thing for it.
Yeah,
The largemouth there is like quality, and I know the smallmouth there are really really good. But it's like for me when I went, I couldn't catch any smallmouth at all. Like I would catch like one random fish, but it was like nothing you could honestly be like, oh my gosh, like we gotta
pattern.
yeah, like this is a pattern. Like I couldn't. I would go to one spot, catch a 4-pounder, and then I would go to 20 different spots that look like it. Might be a little shallower, might be a little deeper, and not get bit at all. So it was like definitely like the largemouth there, like really, really good. And they're kind of built different. I don't know. They're like
Yeah,
strong fish out there. I don't know.
that's
I think it's because
because they're out there deep water all day chasing those balls of bait. Those fish they got shoulders on them.
I know. Like they're like I could make an argument that they're probably some of the strongest largemouth I've caught because, like, they're just so built. Like, I don't, and I think it's just because, like, they're out there, like, feeding so much. And, like all, like, the northern fisheries, you only get, like, 4 months at max to fish them because of how cold it gets. So I just think like they feed for so much and like the pressure is very minimal
Yeah,
compared to like however like the Lake Eufaula, Alabama, how that's getting hit all year regardless of the weather. So
yeah. I like Champlain. You can fish, maybe like 5, 6 months, maybe certain parts. I don't know. It all depends on the winter, but like Oneida, Champlain, the I think you're right too with Cayuga. They're just built different. There's something weird about them because like I've caught 3-pounders that fought like fives plenty of times there. It's funny, and then especially you see like watching the Bass Pro Tour when they were there. That was like more of the spawn, but they're bed fishing and whatnot, sight
yeah,
fishing. But those fish, some of those guys, they would hook into one off a bed and they're fighting it for, several minutes. It's not like just you're bringing them to the side of the boat, scooping them in. And those fish are lethargic. They're on beds and they're fighting like that.
yeah. I
Strong
mean,
fish.
smallmouth, they're just a different animal in my opinion. I mean, and that's what makes it difficult with the opens too, is that no net. So like the amount of fish you lose like right at the boat is like ridiculous. Especially like they would like even on the same all the opens anglers could tell you they just weren't fully eating it. They would eat it out of anger, but you wouldn't get an amazing hook in them most of the time. Sometimes I would catch them like top dead center and it was great, but other times like I would scoop them right at the boat and they would fall off like as soon as I got it right in the boat or right next to it because it was just like they fight for so much. They fight so long, and it's like the amount of like fish that are in that river is unbelievable.
When I was practicing on Champlain this past, because we had the 3 back-to-back on Champlain, the Toyota, then the 2 BFLs. And there was like a couple times in practice, I'm like doing everything I can to shake these fish off. Can't get them to shake off. Like they are pinned and they're barely hooked. They won't come off. And then the day of the tournament, I had 2 fish. Co-angler gets the net, goes to get the fish, and then something happens where like he doesn't scoop them right, or he just pulls the net back and thinks the fish is in the net, and I end up dropping a couple fish. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But I'm like tempted to never use a net again and just try to boat flip every fish, because if I do that, I don't lose fish. Whenever I'm messing around with the net or trying to finesse them at the side of the boat, that's when I lose fish.
Yeah, I think boat flipping is like what I did majority of the time. Like just because it like I just think it's just easier. Like you just like, especially with the smallmouth, they like jump crazy. So like if you can time their jump at the same time, like because they always, they jump
I know what
20
you're saying.
and then they jump right when they get to the boat. If you can time that jump of when they jump right next to the boat and you just flip it in lightly, it's perfect. That's also like the major factor why I use a Carolina rig there is I wasn't trying to use that drop shot because the light line, you can't boat flip them, so you'd have to scoop them. And like the amount of fish I lost using that drop shot in practice, I was like, I just don't feel comfortable using it that much. And like the drop shot to me seemed to catch all the smaller fish.
Yeah.
And I didn't need to weed out the smaller fish. I wanted to catch the big ones. So yeah, the opens no net policy is definitely really challenging. But I've just seen the boat flip everything this year. That's what I just seem to find is the easiest way. So
Seems like it's the better overall method, because I hate losing fish at the boat.
oh
And
my,
then it was funny too. I had one fish on. I caught a bunch of fish on a spy bait too in one of the
those
Champlain events. I was
and
on
the
a spy bait deal,
stuff, yeah, those are
and
fun.
they hit it like a freight train too. Like they knocked slack in the line on that thing. You wouldn't expect it, but it's not like a jerkbait bite for anybody watching that may have never thrown a spy bait. Spy bait may look like you're gonna have like a jerk bait. You pause and they inhale it, then you kind of lean into them. No, they whack this thing, and I had a couple. Like I had pulled up on one spot. It was like a shoal. I fired the spy bait out there. He whacks it, jumps twice, comes off. I'm like, okay, there was a 4.5. Fire it back out there. Whacks it, jumps twice. He's on. Get him halfway to the boat, comes off. And with the spy bait, we're using light line. I use 7 or 8 pound test depending. But
Yeah,
that thing, it's like trying to get them, and then there's another bait too. I tried shaking fish off in practice, and they just won't come off. Like when you're trying to shake them
I
off,
know
but a tournament, of course, they want to spit it.
exactly. Like I wish like I had like my co-angler next to me right now from day 2 on the opens. I literally lost probably 21 pounds.
Oh,
Like
you can't do that. You can't do that.
I know,
You can't.
literally they would like, because you know how drifting works. You really got to situate your boat like well before you even get bit at all. So I launched it out there, and as I'm like pivoting my trolling motor to like reposition my boat so I get to like the ideal angle, I like reel it in because I'm like that cast. I need to reel in. So as I'm reeling in, I just feel like a freight train hit it. So I set the hook. A 5-pounder jumps in midair, literally like right next to me, like probably like up to my head, and he just literally falls off. I could have grabbed him like a football in midair and jumped in the water. I should have done that because that fish would have helped so much. And I broke down day 2 also because I bus panel issues, and the nitro service team was there and fixed it, and I got back out there. But I had to throw a 3.5 back because my live wells weren't working because there was no like switch, and I was like 20 miles away. So yeah, that's one really, really good thing about the Opens is the service there. They have Phoenix, Nitro, Skeeter, Mercury, Power Pole, every like pretty much majority of the things that lithium batteries, stuff that you really need, and they help on the fly. Like majority of these anglers in the Opens have all had boat problems this year, and they've been able to be fixed because of that. I know guys in the Toyotas this year that had to like get out of the tournament because the like their boat wasn't up to par for the tournaments at all. Like they had motor issues or something, and like in the Opens, Mercury will get right on that. Like as soon as you call them and you pull up to like the ramp where their trailer is, they will fix it there for you, and it makes all the difference. I've never had boat issues at all until that day, and I didn't know how important it was to have a great service crew behind you like
You have
Nitro
to.
until that happened. You know what I mean? And it's the same for all bass mode companies there for the Open. So I mean, it goes a long way. I've seen everything: Bass Cat, Phoenix, Skeeter, anything you can think of.
Shout out to Buck from Phoenix support staff. He took care of me when I broke down at the Toyota. I had a couple relays go bad, and then but this past BFL, it's the unfortunate thing with the BFLs, we don't have the support staff that the Toyotas or the Opens do. I had a bolt back out on the trim. It's I guess an issue that happens occasionally, and I didn't know. I fished kind of near Plattsburgh
Yeah,
around like 12:30. I was like, you know what? I got this one spot I want to hit. I just had a gut feeling. I already cold 9 times. I dropped 2 fish. I was like, I need 2 big bites. And then right when I was saying that in my head, my catches a 5 on the spot I'm at, and I'm like, oh my god, like, do I run now? He just caught a 5. I needed that fish. I basically needed to upgrade 2 2-pounders. I just wasn't getting big bites. I had 2 good ones, one tournament fish, and then 2 small ones. But I kept culling the small ones for like ounces, and it's like 12:30, 1 o'clock. I was like, you know what? Screw it. I ran to one of my shoals down in mid lake, like a 45-minute
yeah.
run. So I'm like, I got 45 minutes to get there. It's blowing. We got like threes and occasional 4s and 5s.
It's always like that.
It's always like that. So like, I get 45 minutes to get down there. I can fish for an hour, and then I got 45 minutes to get back. As soon as I get there, I lost my trim. So I'm trimmed all the way down. I can't do anything. It won't trim up, trim down. I'm like, it's blowing. I was like, all right, we're going to fish for 15 minutes. I pull up on the spot. I make a couple casts. I end up catching like a 9-pound walleye. Wasted like 15 minutes on him. And then I keep flipping to the same spot. I end up cracking a 2-pounder. Then I go to move. The fires right in to where I was just caught the 2-pounder and catches another 5. I'm like, you got to be
Yeah,
kidding me. And I was like, all right, time to go through everything in the lockers because I was probably going to spear waves on the way back because I don't have a trim. And
exactly.
then it took me like an hour and a half to get back.
Yeah, that's the thing I like about the Opens is like usually, generally depending on the field, because some co-anglers like there's more co-anglers than some tournaments and others, but like some days you have a some days you don't. So like when you're by yourself, it was different for me, but it's good because it's like sometimes like the co's are great to have on the boat, but it's like it just seems like for me they always catch that one that you need, just the one. Like I of course there's times where you just get like your co-angler is really really good, like Sakai Ushio. Shout out to him. Day one of the Opens, I pull up my trolling motor. First spot, I pull up my trolling motor. He launches it. I don't know what he was. He launched something out there, 5-pounder, like right away. I literally was going. I was going to reach for my Carolina rig rod. Literally, like, as I was unstrapping, he's like, I got one. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it was like, I was like, he caught 3 for, I don't know, 3 for 11 something before I even had a fish. I caught like 15 pounds that day, or 14 something. And that was good. But I was like, if I had a 5 and a 4 in there, that would have been close to 18 something. And if I would have actually kept fish pinned. But again, all the anglers in the opens lost fish that week. So, I mean, I can't really complain.
You know what that tells you, though? That whatever you figured out in practice and your gut to do what you did that day was the right thing to do. Even though you didn't catch them, you made the right choices. If your caught a big one or you dropped a couple of big ones, you were around the right fish and you did the right thing in practice. So it just confirms stuff like that actually, was Gerald Swindle say, positive mental attitude. If you're not doing good or something and something's not working out, but then your code cracks one or you drop a big one, you were on the right path.
Exactly.
It just wasn't meant to be that at that moment.
Yeah, and I look at co-anglers almost as being like a positive thought because they're kind of reassuring you that there's fish there.
Yeah.
Because, like, at least mentally, like, if even if your catches one, it reassures you that there's fish there. So, like, there's been times where I've seen a lot of guys kind of like beat themselves up in the head because their co's caught so much and blah blah blah. They're throwing back fish that you need, and it happens to everybody. But it's like you can't let that like stop you from what you're doing. So like he was catching fish on different baits in a Carolina rig, but I was like, I'm still staying with it because it's something I feel comfortable with, and it's something that I know the fish are gonna eat at some point of the day. So I was like, you can't let what other people are doing kind of get in the way of like what you caught fish on in practice and stuff like that, because I feel like there's a lot of anglers that their co-angler catches them flipping or their co-angler catches them on a drop shot and automatically they pull out a drop shot too now, and it's not something they're comfortable with. And had they have stuck with the jig that they caught them on in practice, they could have had a better event. So I think like there's like you shouldn't kind of spin yourself out over it because I don't it's that big of a deal. I think if anything, they're helping you like reassure that there's fish there because I didn't. We drifted the first. It was like a little flat, like 18 feet of water, 20 something, and we drifted it first, and I didn't get bit at all. So I was thinking like if I fished by myself. And I didn't get bit on the first couple drifts at all until I caught a 5 and a 3.5 on like the third drift. But had I have been by myself and my coat didn't catch those fish, I probably would have left after the second drift and missed all those fish. Yeah. So it does make a huge difference for sure.
What's up, Kate? Saucier Fishing said, never mentally compete against your co. 100%.
Yeah, it's 100% for sure. Because it's easy to like spin yourself out over it.
Yeah, but especially if you're the one thing that drives me nuts though, it's like if you're fishing with your you're throwing the same bait, and I've seen this happen. Shout out Daryl Byron, he's a buddy of mine. He used to fish the FLW tour. I don't know what year it was. It's got to be like 12 years ago. We were in a tournament, and I was a on his boat. It's more than 12 years. I don't know. It's like 12, 15 years ago. I was a on his boat. I had a boat, but I didn't. I was fishing as a in tournaments. We're both fishing hair jigs on Candlewood. I caught like 80 rock bass that tournament, and he caught like 21 pounds of smallies. And we're throwing the same hair jig, the same line, the same 6-pound test, whatever. And from a coast perspective, it's like, I'm frustrated because I'm not catching them. But then there's times where it's like, I've been, as a boater, my is throwing the same exact thing I'm throwing, and he's putting them in the boat, and I'm not. And I'm like, what am I doing? Yeah. And that happens a lot, too, on St. Lawrence. If you're drifting And the first time, not the first year I fished St. Lawrence, but the second year, I was like finally like mentally cracking the code on drifting because this is not something I've ever done.
Yeah.
So like drifting in current and trying to control the speed with the trolling motor and everything. But technically, your code is getting first dibs depending on how your boat is set up. Your code is going to get first dibs on those fish before you because his bait's being presented to him before yours is. And I don't know if like when you catch them out of those current seams, they all like come up and then they're not even paying attention to yours now.
Yeah, that's like one thing that, like, again, that's how I lost that one fish is I was positioning it because like the co can easily get the advantage. But like on day one of that open, my co was doing really good. But then day two, I had a different co. He was fishing the same bait I was. I threw some back there for him by midday because I caught probably the wind picked up, so it was really good for drifting. I probably caught like 35 fish before he caught one. So it was like I had all my weight, like, and probably missed 20 pounds by at least 9 a.m.
Wow.
And I probably caught like 80 fish that day, all around 3. But it was just I couldn't get that like 5-pounder. But it's like it matters, like the positioning and everything, because even like you could be throwing the same exact bait and they won't eat it. So I mean, that goes a long way for sure.
Yeah. Let's wrap this up. Reece, thanks so much for jumping on tonight. It was kind of like last minute, but we made it happen. I appreciate you coming up. Good luck at Auburn. And before we go, what's your next event?
That's a great question. It's either Auburn. It's either a college tournament on Lake Martin, open on Watts Bar. So one of those. I'm gonna be kind of bouncing around all over the place. So thank you everyone for following along, especially to Mr. Dave's podcast and everything on my page. Also, we all really appreciate it. So thank you guys, and I'm excited to be down here at Auburn. And if you're ever down here south, just let me know. We can do some fishing for sure. So
yeah, bro, we'll get them. We'll stack them up.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. I'm hoping to not say anything and show up at the. Well, you can't do the regional, but maybe the Potomac Toyota. I missed the St. Lawrence Toyota because the boat issue, but I'm gonna try to jump into that Potomac Toyota. But I'd like to see you there.
Yeah.
If you can pull away from class.
I really really want to go. It's not a close drive anymore. So
how many hours?
It's like 12, 13. Yeah, but
it's worse.
Yeah, I mean it definitely it could be worse for sure. But I'm excited. I mean I want to do it. I might pop up out of nowhere. I'll let you.
No practice, just.
But I don't. If I do, it'll be so last minute. It'll be so.
Oh, there was one last question. Are you gonna play ball at Auburn? Because I didn't even know this, but you ball too, like basketball.
Yeah, no, I was really good in high school. Like I had like 25 points a game, but I'm not like Auburn basketball like Division I good. I mean, I probably could have like played college basketball if I really kept with it. Like, but as soon as like 10th grade ended, like I was like so into fishing. So I pretty much played basketball to kind of keep me in shape and like have fun over the winter season, because in Maryland you can't really fish much anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of all worked out hand in hand, but I'll probably just play like club basketball at Auburn and then just fish and do like the opens and Toyotas and all that stuff there, because that's more important. But I'm never going to stop playing basketball because that was like my first love before. So yeah, I have to keep with it for sure. But yeah, fishing's definitely.
It'd be funny though, like a year or two, I see you qualify through tryouts or something randomly. Like, just let me go let me go do tryouts real quick, see what happens. And they're like, all right, you're starting.
You know, a walk on like tryout, that would be really funny to do. Like I I would consider it, but I mean, it's just like it, like Auburn basketball, any D1 school, it's like such a job. Like
Yeah.
you can't, and like if you were to do it, it's physically impossible to fish, dude. Like you'd have like if I played Auburn
Oh,
basketball,
fishing would be out the
yeah,
window. There's no way.
well, it would have to be out the window, and I can't give that up. I can't because
Yeah.
it's just so much. I like fishing's anybody in here in this podcast, Instagram Live that's on the fence about fishing, it is one of the most rewarding things like you can possibly get into sport or anything because like at the end of the day, like spending 10 hours on the water and getting that 1 5-pounder, like it makes all the difference. And you can't get that in a football or a golf or basketball because it's like, yeah, a basketball, like a game win is good, but it's like it's fishing just it's so rewarding. You know, like you can't really explain the feeling of having a good tournament or having a good day out on the water. It's just like it's a good feeling. It makes you feel warm in the heart that stuff that you applied like kind of worked. So
Yeah. Because it's the only like non-sticking ball game
yeah, exactly.
that really has like more variables beyond yourself. Like if you're good at basketball, if you miss a shot, that's on you.
Exactly.
If you, I mean, I guess you could say if you hit the pontoon boat with a jig, it was on you too. But
Yeah,
but
yeah.
no, but it's there's so you got weather, you got conditions, water clarity, the forage, the
Yeah.
drought, flooding,
And
heat waves, cold
yeah,
fronts. There's too many. There's millions of variables. So when all those stars align for people, and a lot of people I talk to that don't tournament fish, that go fishing, they don't people just don't understand like the amount of effort. So guys like me, guys like Reece, the and for him to be so young doing this is like astounding. And everybody watching, check out Bassmasters. I think you have a link in your bio or something.
yes, yep.
They
So
got an article
yeah,
on him being like the youngest stick in the game type of thing. And but the amount of stuff that we go through to catch those fish is just like the average person like wouldn't comprehend it. Like, what's the point? Like at that point,
yeah,
it's the point is to catch the fish. Like you have to have this uncanny drive to
exactly.
put five in the box. It's
And
it's
you can't explain it. And like basketball, like you said, in game when you're playing, like the game's in your hands. Like there's stuff on the water that is totally out of your control.
yep.
Like when that wind picks up on the Potomac or Champlain or any big body of water and you had 2 hours left to fish and you're halfway across the river now, 45 minutes, that turned into 2 hours just then with that wind picking up. And it's the worst ride back, you know, it's the worst ride back. And it's stuff that you have to take into account with everything. That's totally out of your control. Like when it starts raining or when that wind picks up, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't be like, hey, let's switch this around so it's dead conditions I wanted it to do. Because like that's why
It's so challenging.
yeah, it's really challenging. And anybody that can compare it to any other sport, like I've played basketball. I played travel basketball for a long time. Fishing is by far one of the most difficult sports that you could ever do. Just
Yep.
because you're like you said, you're not competing against yourself. You're not competing against the guys that you're fishing against. They can be very good. Don't get me wrong, but you're competing against the fish more than anything because you have to catch them the best on the water at that time. And
Yeah.
that's just so difficult. And people like, you know, you get this question too. Is fishing luck?
Nope.
No, it can't be. I mean, sure, the size could be luck because you can't control the size on the fish, but the best anglers are always, even on the opens. Opens proves that fishing isn't luck because the best anglers are always consistent on the water. They always are. They know when the wind picks up what to do. They know if it starts snowing, all of a sudden they know, oh, I got to use this. So, I mean, huge props to them. And, yeah, thank you for having me on this podcast. This was great. So,
Yeah, man, dude, it was a blast having you, man. This is cool. Like this was the whole point of this podcast, was like build camaraderie amongst all of us. It's like the whole real quick story. Championship last year, James River, made the run to the Chick. On my way back, day 2, I had the fish in the box to put me in 7th for day 3. And I had a motor issue, electrical issue, couldn't get the boat to start, and I died halfway between the Chick and Henrico. 4 boats drove right past me. And we talked about it with Bailey Egret. Shout out to him from Serious Angler. He was on here. We were talking about it too, and it's like it could be a cutthroat sport, but guys like us, you know, we can change that, you know,
exactly.
And, you know, build the community with each other. So it's
Yes.
a great thing, man, having you on.
Yes. Thank you for having me. And once again, anybody that's trying to get into fishing or anything, it's like building relationships goes a long way, regardless of whether, like, we fish entirely different tournaments. We haven't seen each other all year, but it's like it's good to have like connections and relationships, because when I do come back to the Toyotas, or you do decide to fish an open, it goes a long way to have like people that can help you, especially when you have issues like that. Like there's times where boats break down and you like it comes to like that tough decision. So it definitely goes along.
Well, have a good night, buddy. I'll see you.
All right, thank
Good luck.
you. I hope I'll see you up north sometime for sure.
Yeah, definitely, bro.
All right.
We'll be in touch.
Yes, stay in touch.
All right,
All right.
shout out to everybody who's watched the podcast tonight. And as of today, they're all going to YouTube. So if you missed it here, or you're not good with Instagram, or you're watching it from a friend's phone or iPad, whatever, you want to pick up another episode, you could go check me out, Dave Miller Fishing, at YouTube. And all the Road to All-American episodes will be up there. All right, guys. Have a good night.
Yep, definitely go check them out. And thank you for everyone on here. I really appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thanks. Good night, buddy.
Right.
Bye.